Hey, it's Rob Levy again with the Rob Levy Real Estate team here in Portland, Oregon. I wanted to talk to you about, is there going to be a housing crash? We're seeing reports coming through, people talking about forbearances and foreclosures and so on and so forth. And I've been doing this since 1988 on a high level as one of Portland, Oregon's top producing realtors. So I wanted to share with you what I know. Now, I put together a bunch of notes and I've compiled them all here, so excuse me for working off my list because there's a lot of stuff I've got to cover here. And I wanted to share with you my thoughts as to why I don't feel like there's going to be a housing crash in 2021. And also why, even though the prices are up, it may be important for you to buy a house now and also sell your house now. So let's start at the beginning here. So first off, there were a lot of bad predictions last year in 2020 when COVID happened, and it's like the whole world was going to end in the real estate world. Well, I can tell you, in 32 years of doing this, I've never been so busy. And the housing market has been booming. There's a lot of different reasons for that. The main ones that we're finding is mostly it's lower interest rates, lower inventory, and people working from home. So let's cover all three of those. We're getting a lot of people that are working from home. And a lot of people are now being told, hey, you're going to permanently work from home. So we're seeing people looking for bigger houses, and we're also seeing people relocate from different areas. In my market in Portland, Oregon, the majority of those seem to be coming from Northern California, Southern California, Phoenix, and particularly Northern California. And that's obviously a very high real estate market as far as values go. And they're selling their houses down there and they're moving to Portland, buying a house here that's bigger, that's got multiple bedrooms, hopping on Zoom, and they're just working just like they were in the Bay Area. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of that. So the second part of this talks about interest rates. Well, interest rates, as you can see in this chart, they've come down a tremendous amount. And yes, they're up a little bit higher right now. They actually went up over 3, and as of this recording, they're actually slightly below 3. And these are historically low interest rates. Now, prices have gone up, right? Yeah, prices went up, what was it, 15, 16% nationally last year. I think it was 11 point something percent in the Portland area where I work. So houses are more expensive, but are they? No, they're not, because interest rates are so much lower. Even though the houses cost more money, the payment on that house is less than it was in a lot of cases in, say, 2015, 16, 14, some of those years. So in reality, the cost of buying that house is actually less now than it was then. So that's something important that's going on. So that we don't feel, the fact that there's more people going to be buying houses, we feel is going to cause the housing market not to crash. So what about those forbearances and foreclosures? Well, you had an option when COVID started. A whole bunch of people clicked on the button that said, I can't afford to make my house payments. Now, you didn't have to qualify, kind of like during the recession where they had a problem. You didn't have to do anything other than click on the button. You didn't have to justify it. Anybody could click on that button and say, hey, I need to defer my payments or just stop making payments. So they could stop making payments up to 3 months. Some of that's been extended and so on. And then basically you've got to pay the house, pay the bank back. In some cases, they were able to actually tack it on the end. So really didn't cause any damage. It just, let's say if you delayed your payments for 3 months, you've got 3 extra months of payments stuck on the end, which could be 29 years away. So that's not that big of a deal. But what's interesting is what's happened is, I'm looking at some of this stuff here, keeping in mind that Fannie and Freddie, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which back a lot of the loans, they buy a lot of the loans from the major banks, actually about 70% of the loans, they've got options at the end. So when you get to the end of this mess that you're in, by not making your payments for 3 months and saying, oh my gosh, now I owe 4 months, or 3 months, what do I do? Plus my existing ones, so 4 months. You've got options. You don't need to pay it all back right at that moment. So that's the biggest thing that's going on right there. The second thing to consider is, it's not like the first day of COVID that all of a sudden things got shut down. Everybody clicked on that button at the same time, and there are millions of houses that when one day started doing this, going into deferment situation. So it's not like they're all going to end up on the market on one particular day. So even if nothing good had happened, and a lot of good has happened, even if nothing good had happened, it wouldn't be a flooding the market with listings. So basically what's going on there is that now some of these people are coming out of deferment and they're actually paying back the loan, the amount that they owed, and only 7.6% have refinanced the house or chosen to sell it of those people that have done it. So here's why. You see, house prices have gone up. House prices have gone up a lot 15.8% on a national level, around 11.5% here in Oregon in the last year. That's more than compensated for those missed payments, especially when you get into more expensive markets. In my marketplace, the average sales price in the Portland metro area is around $550,000. Well, if that went up 10% only, that's $55,000 in increase in equity in the house, so the house is more valuable. So that's what's going on there. The other part of this that's become really important is that price increases. So again, we just talked about the prices increases going up 16% nationwide, but the other thing, I guess what I'm trying to say here is we're talking about home equity. And unlike the last recession, when a lot of people got into trouble and there were terrible loans out there, I remember seeing ads on TV, and some of you remember them too. Hey, you can borrow up to 125% of your home's value. It's like, well, that's not going to end well. I remember saying that to my wife at the time, and obviously it didn't. Well, only 20% of people had more than 50% equity in their homes. Now more than 50% of Americans have more than 50% equity in their house. Where am I going with that? If you've got a $500,000 house and you owe $250,000, even if you get into trouble, you're not going to let it go back to the bank because you can sell it for $500,000 or more and pay off the $250,000, even if that's grown to $265,000 or $75,000 with penalties for not paying. You're still going to walk away with a bunch of equity. So those are not going to be turning into foreclosure properties. And it's foreclosure properties that kill the market. So there's that to consider as well. Also, a couple of things. Watching the news lately, I'm recording this obviously in April of 2021. And I forget the exact numbers, but somewhere around 16, 17, 20% of Americans are now partially or fully vaccinated. The economy is starting to come back. I like to travel. A couple of days ago, I called my favorite airline, Alaska Airlines, to book a big family trip. It was a complicated one using points and special fare reductions and stuff, so I had to call them. And because I travel a lot, I'm a mucky muck as far as with the elite status with Alaska Airlines, and I had to wait 30 minutes. And normally I get right through. And I asked the lady, and I said, hey, is there something wrong with your system? As a top tier elite, I had to wait 30 minutes, not complaining, I'm just curious. And she said, oh no. She said, all of the airlines are running into the same problem. The average person can wait right now 14 to 16 hours to get a call back. So what that means is people are getting out of their shells and they're starting to travel again. And the economy is coming back for that reason and a lot of other reasons. If the economy is coming back, people are going to have more money in their pockets. People have been saving money because we haven't been going out and buying lunch and doing all of the things that we normally were doing. So Americans have more money in their pockets. And a lot of them are going to be buying houses. So that's going to keep the prices going up. There's also a very big shortage of inventory. There's still a lot of people that are hesitant to sell their house because of COVID. A lot more are hesitant because they don't know where to go. Others are just trying to pay their house off because they feel more secure if it's paid off. But one of the biggest things that's hitting it right now is the lumber prices. You see, lumber prices right now since 2018 are up 300%. I just heard of a lumber package for a new construction house that bid out about a year and a half ago at $19,000 is now $49,000 for the same lumber. Now, what does that mean to you as a home buyer? What that means is that house is going to cost more money. That builder is going to pass that $30,000 on to you as the buyer, so the cost of the house is going to go up 30 grand. So existing houses are also going to go up because the cost of new construction houses are going up. Along the same token, people just simply haven't been developing land at the same pace that they used to, so there's not enough land out there for those builders to build houses on as well. So we've got all of that going on. So currently there's a big backlog of buyers as a result. So the current situation, though, this is something I do feel is important to talk about. The current situation, as I see it, is not sustainable. Now, you might be watching this saying, hey, Rob, you're telling me all this great news. You can't say that this isn't going to end. Well, this is going to end at some point. But how can you take advantage of that? Well, if you're a seller right now, you might want to strongly consider selling your house for the simple reason that you've never been able to get more money for it. Now, what's going to happen in the future, who knows? But what I can tell you, you've never been able to get more money for your house than you will right now. But at the same time, I should say, you can go out and buy another house at interest rates that are pretty much at historical lows. Okay, Rob, they're 2.95% rather than 2.5%. Big deal. I mean, that's not that much of a difference. When I got in this business, interest rates were hovering around the 13, 14, 15%. It was a huge deal to go from a 12% interest rate to a 10% interest rate. It's not that big of a difference in monthly payment because the amounts are lower to go from, let's say, a 2.5% mortgage rate to a 3%. It's just not going to make that big of a difference. So if you're thinking about selling, now's a great time to sell because you'll never get more money for your house. And what a fantastic time that we have the luxury in the United States of America to lock into 30-year mortgages at an incredibly historically low interest rate, or near historically low. I was raised in England, France, and Canada, and most of my teenage years were in Canada. And I was speaking to my parents the other day about this, and we were discussing the fact that in England, or excuse me, Canada, when you do a mortgage, every 5 years it comes up for renewal. So you may get those amazing rates in Canada right now. It could be, I don't know what they are. Let's say the 3% in Canada. The reality is, if they're 6% in 5 years, you're going to have to renew that mortgage and qualify for it at 6% in 5 years. A lot of the European and Asian countries are set up the same way. But the United States, when you get that 30-year fixed rate mortgage and lock that guy in at 2.75%, let's use that as an example, or 3%, or 3.5%, it doesn't really matter that much. You've got that payment for 30 years. And that's what makes all the massive difference here. So those are the things that I really want you to consider when you think about this going forward. Again, for sellers, a great time to sell. For buyers, a great time to buy because of the cost of buying the house is cheaper because of the interest rates. If you've got any questions on this, as I said at the beginning, my team and I have been doing this for 32 years at this point, since 1988. We've been through 4 recessions. We've been through up markets, down markets. We've seen tons and thousands of houses that we've been inside. We've got war stories like you wouldn't believe as far as when we walk into a house and see things that you wouldn't even think of seeing. So give us a call. The number's on the screen here, and please subscribe to these videos and feel free to forward this on to a friend too. Thank you so much.